I like to keep some old sheets of plywood or paneling on hand. Easier to create a smaller workspace and get that soil cleaned up. For the project today, we are going to upgrade and repot this large philodendron. I've been referring to this as a split leaf philodendron. We use it as a house plant all through the winter, most of the season, and then in the summer I do bring it outside just to refresh it, get it some brighter light. But what's happening now, we are starting to get a little more yellowing than we've seen in the past. The pot is starting to crack. That plastic is just getting old, getting brittle, and I move it in and out each season, bump up against things. So we're going to upgrade it into a pot that's about, I'm going to say it's going to be about 2 to 3 inch bigger all the way around the root system. And that's what I usually recommend. You don't want to go too big. It's hard to keep the water requirements the same. The root ball is going to demand to be hydrated, and that outer edge may or not be dry. It might get too saturated. So don't put a plant in too big of a pot, and we definitely don't want to go so big that I can't carry it in and out anymore, because I do plan on doing that. It's about mid-September here, by the way, when I'm doing this. And the reason I'm going to do it now, typically you don't want to start going below that 50 degrees Fahrenheit for some of these tropical plants. Last night, we dipped down to about 39 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're going to see cooler and cooler temperatures now. So it's time to get it back indoors for the winter. Take a look at this one I spotted in a public garden. Isn't that massive? You can tell they're just taking this in and out because it's not hardy to our cold climate. Now I'm choosing to do this outdoors. Since it's kind of a messy process, it's going to make it a little more difficult to carry that planter in because it's going to be bigger, it's going to be heavier. I've had pretty good luck using this Pro Mix. We use a lot of this for our vegetable seedlings that we start in the spring, just an all-purpose sphagnum-based peat moss. I'm sure it's got a little bit of bark in it, but not much. But this mix does not have any fertilizer. So we're going to use Osmocote. That's my go-to fertilizer for a lot of different things. I tend to buy this in bulk. Leonard has it around 150 bucks, I think. But this has got a lot of almost all the macronutrients, some of the micronutrients. So it's just a good, solid fertilizer with about a 3 to 4 month release, but you can get 6-month release fertilizers. All right, we've chosen a little bit bigger pot, as I mentioned. One of the things about a lot of the poly pots you buy, this does not currently have drainage. It's probably a good idea to make the decision if you're going to put drainage in it before you pot it up, to drill those holes. That way you can just go straight down in the pot from the top. I have grown quite a few houseplants where I don't have drainage, but you do have to be more careful. You can get a waterlog situation, a root rot. And since I bring this outside every year, I definitely want to have drainage, because in a rainstorm, you never know. You know, that can fill up with water, and then how do you get the water out of there? And what's going to happen when we bring this inside, we always lose 3 to 5 of the leaves very quickly. They just yellow up and they start drying up. Now what you want to do, let them just continue to dry down. What I found, if I cut them back too early when I bring it inside, they still have quite a bit of sap in that stem, and it drips or it leaks all over the place, and it's sticky. We've actually ruined some furniture that way. I've been informed by the boss that, yeah, I got to be careful there. If you take a look here, this is the original saucer, that white one that you see here. What I typically do, I'll go to the hardware store, the garden centers, and you can find some of these all-purpose clear saucers. This is stained up. I have a lot of them that rotate in and out to different areas. So we're going to find a bigger, oversized clear saucer. That's going to match quite a bit better under there. It won't stick out like a sore thumb. We're going to lay this down. No, it's not going to. Oh, that thing's in there. Once we get the pressure released off one side, I think it's going to pop out. But you can just see how brittle that plastic's gotten. Oh yeah, there she is. So there's the roots. I just watered this pretty heavy the other day because I wanted it to be fully hydrated as we do the transplanting, working with it. No sense having it bone dry. It's going to create a little bit more of an effort, as I mentioned, to carry it inside, especially in that bigger pot, the extra soil. It'll likely float around in the pot with that new soil just a little bit, so we might have to readjust it. And it's possible once we water it inside, we're even going to have to add just a little bit more soil. We'll put some soil in the bottom, put some of that soil down there. We'll just do some quick tamping. just a perfect fit. Yeah, now the process begins. It takes a little while to get that soil in there, to work your way around, get that soil dumped in. We'll spin the pot. That's sometimes the easier way to go rather than walking all the way around. You can see what I mean here as far as how messy this can get when you're dumping. A lot of it just spills over. This would be a disaster inside. The backstory on this, I worked in a garden center for many years, and we would get a lot of people that would come in with large plants and ask, can you just take this? They would donate it. Reason being, oftentimes they were moving and they just couldn't bring it with them. Other times somebody in the family would die, and so they had a plant that they did not want to throw, knowing that it was special to their lost one. So we would either sometimes discount them to the employees or sell them, and I ended up with this one. The gal that brought it in, she mentioned that it had been in the family for 40 years. Now we've had this, I think, about 10 years now, so this is 50 years old. Now I don't think it's been in this pot that long. I would say it's probably been in that pot though, I don't know, possibly 20, 25 years. I'm liking how this brown pot looks, just a little bit softer, earth tone type color. That white was a little too bright for me, especially now that I can compare it to this brown pot. I've had this in a couple different rooms, experimenting where it does best. One year I put it in a completely shaded room, and that was a mistake. It didn't do as well. So now we try to keep it in our lower recreation area where there's a lot of bright sun, and it even gets some direct sun throughout the day coming through that window, and that's where we've had the best luck with this plant. All right. Any type of soil now that we need to add once we get it in, that'll be easy. If we get a little bit of settling, we'll just add a little bit more. But we're not going to do any more, or we're going to be spilling it all over the place. If you're an active gardener, a lot of different projects, a lot of different soils. This is something that I do. I use these blue bins to put the unused soil. Just a lot easier to store the soil than an open bag. And then I even have a setup where if I want to create a potting table, I take all 4 of my blue storage bins, and then the soil can be stored underneath. Quickly you can move that table off, access your soil, put it on the top. So this just works out great, but you do have to have some extra space. All right, time to go get set up indoors for our winter location. Okay, we're going to be bringing it down these stairs into that lower area, as I mentioned, a recreation area. Setting it up in that corner there. Looks like a big corner until you get that plant in there on a table. And I'm going to get it on a table, shorter one, just because I want to get it up a little bit so it can catch some of this southern sun. That's where we've had the best luck for sure. Now, this is what I was mentioning. If you cut those yellow leaves that we're going to get too quickly, you're going to get those stains. You see here? Yeah, we got several of them. In the past, we've used an outdoor tablecloth. That's vinyl. But this year, I think we're just going to trim a scrap piece of plastic so it doesn't look completely terrible. Just enough to overhang, so if it does get some water on it, it'll drip down. Okay, here goes nothing. I'm going to start by seeing if I can actually lift this up. We might have to switch to a two-wheeler, but that can be an adventure as well. Okay, here we go. Oh, God. This doesn't get any easier. Oh, my hands are slipping. One advantage to being short. Yeah, now it's just a matter of positioning it where it looks the best. And I almost forgot the saucer, so we're going to lift this up one more time. I did find one of those bigger clear saucers I was telling you about, so we'll slip that under there. Doesn't have to be a lot. You just have to be careful when you're watering. You don't want to overdo it and overcharge that saucer. Now, over the next several days, I'll be adding water to get that new soil hydrated. Like I said, you don't want to go crazy where you overcharge it and you end up with a mess down below. This is about 1.5 gallon container, and I'm betting by the time 2 to 3 days goes by, we'll have added, I'm going to say, probably about 2 of these, believe it or not. That's how much that peat moss based soil will absorb. We'll just keep looking for signs that that soil is staying wet on the top. So a little bit at a time, we're going to add about half a container. That's one of the other important reasons why I wanted to have that root ball fully hydrated before we started this whole process. And one last thing I'll mention, you can see some of that sun is coming through, but now as winter progresses, the angle of the sun is going to get lower and lower. So it's amazing how much sun really does come in here. We keep our basement at about 65 degrees Fahrenheit through the winter. That's just the perfect temperature. That's my 2 cents on upgrading a large philodendron. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again next time.